As I said, my name is David Brehm. The L stands for Lee. And I worked on the feature film Jimmy Neutron. You guys familiar with Jimmy Neutron?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I was a character animator on that film. A little trivia about that film. Jimmy Neutron was one of the first 3 films ever nominated for an Academy Award for the first year that they brought out an Academy Award for animation exclusively. So we were up against, do you guys know who we were up against that year? No, not that far back. Shrek, yes. Shrek and Monsters, Inc. You guys remember who won?
Shrek.
Yes, Shrek won. We all thought Monsters, Inc. should have won. We even were pulling for Monsters, Inc. We knew we were kind of the long shot. Not that we didn't, there was still 1 in 3 chance of winning, right? So we could have won. But we had a feeling that one of the other 2 might have a better shot. But that was just because, we were working in Dallas, and that was unusual because a lot of films come out of California, and nowadays they come from all over the place, but at the time it's primarily California. So that was unusual, and Pixar was in California, and Pixar just put out all these amazing films, So that was interesting. And then we did the television series immediately after the feature film, and the television series ran for 3 seasons, and on that, I was a layout artist, then I was a layout supervisor, and then I became the layout department head for the Jimmy Neutron TV series. We were nominated for an Academy Award for the film, and then the TV series, we won an Annie Award. You guys familiar with that? Okay, very good, awesome, very good. Have you guys seen All of the Other Reindeer? It's a holiday special.
Yeah.
Right. I was a character animator on that film. You guys familiar with the Ant Bully?
Yeah.
Okay. I was a layout artist on that film. There was also a straight-to-DVD series called Jingaroo, and then there was we did the original pitch pilot for the film The Barnyard. You guys familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Now I have my own animation company. We do production, regular production, as well as animation and motion graphics. I've also illustrated a few children's books, and I've actually written a comic strip called Willy Nilly, and Willy Nilly are 2 armadillos, and I've got a book and a coloring book out for that. I also happen to be married to Stephanie Young, if you guys know who that is. She's a voice actress, and we get to travel around, and we basically live as full-time creatives. So we actually do a panel together called, how to live life as full-time creatives and make a living. So, and that's working all the time and doing things like this, which is great. We get to do it together. We also have a band. We play jazz pop, and so this is kind of a little bit of everything we do these days. And I animate a lot for YouTube. So if those of you that are doing animation for YouTube, we can talk about that towards the end. It's a totally different business model than it is for regular films. So you'll find that there's pluses and minuses to all of the above. All right? Okay. There we go. It may just be me. I don't know. We'll see. I keep looking at the door going, any minute now. Oh, you're here with me. Good. I know we've never met. Sam? All right. David Brehm. Nice to meet you. Sam, you're going to have to tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a voice actor on the show Regular Show for Cartoon Network. I do the voice of Pops and Benson and Muscle Man, and I'm also an animator. I've worked been both a computer animator and a traditional animator for Disney and DreamWorks a little bit. And now I work kind of just making my own films and doing voices on Regular Show.
All right. Good job. Are you just saying hi, or do you have a question?
Can you do the voice of Pops?
Wahoo! Good show.
I don't do voices.
You know who else doesn't do voices? My mom!
That's Muscle Man for anyone who doesn't watch regular shows.
Yes.
There you go.
He does so much better than me. It's like comparing, and I don't even know what to compare to.
My wife does voices so well, I don't even try to go near that because she's really good at it. Anyway. So I was telling everybody a little bit about, the basics, pre-production, production, post-production, and is that the kind of stuff we're talking about from concept to creation? It just seems that we could kind of run through the process a little bit. Are you guys interested in that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I know in most animation experiences, it starts typically with a great story. That's one of the things that you can't already get to projects that get fully funded in animation without having a pretty good story. And it gets tweaked and revised and all this. Interesting difference between animation and production that I've noticed, you have noticed, is that you pretty much have control over a lot on the animation side. And not that you don't have control on the production side, but in live action it's a little different. People, they do their own take on things and they act accordingly to what they interpret as the character's motivation and so forth in the script. And in animation, you control every nuance, every little component of it. So that actually makes you work, I think, a little bit more diligently, even so on certain areas of pre-production that you might not need to as much in certain areas of live action. By and large, it's not all the time. Some people do a lot of pre-production on live action, some don't, but everybody in animation, you have to. You kind of have to you have to roll with a lot of pre-production, which means you refine your script over and over and over, do a lot of great conceptual art and character design and so forth. Got anything on that?
Yeah, you have to plan more as far as like the storyboard and make sure each shot is kind of, you have an idea of what the acting is going to be and plan out everything that way so you kind of have more of a finished film before you start animating, so you can get a good idea of what is wrong and what needs to be changed or fixed. So before you spend all that time animating, and depending on what the medium is, making puppets or building characters in the computer, before you spend all that time, you know that it's good, and you're not gonna have to go back and redo because you don't want to waste a bunch of time.
Have you guys ever heard the term animatic? You ever heard that term? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Good. The animatic is it's like the top secret tool of the animation industry. The animatic actually kind of becomes your edit, but it's, as they say, timing is everything. And it's really critical, and you can't really, before you're gonna wanna just spend buku dollars on a project, the directors actually wanna see it first. And if you're the director of the project, I highly recommend it, because wouldn't it be nice to see your project come to life even before you actually go through the process of either modeling all the characters or rigging them or drawing them, depending on what medium you're using. So I can't stress that enough. Try to prepare diligently and create an animatic for your project, and you'll be very happy you did.
Yeah, I've been working on a film recently that is with puppets. It has bits of animation in it, but it's with puppets, and I started doing a test just to figure out what it would look like, just filming a little bit of it, and I haven't done a lot of actual puppetry. So in doing that test, I realized, I'm not going to be able to just do this necessarily like live action or like a play or something, because I wanted to be able to plan out each shot. So I went back and I did a storyboard, and I spent like a lot of time getting that working, and that helped me when I actually shot it, so that I knew
There was three of
what
us.
each character would do
Thought it was
in each
7:45.
shot. And it's like it just kind of, I had a plan, and then filming each shot became a lot easier because I knew, okay, this character just is going to turn to the left, and that's all it needs to happen. But just the more you plan with animation, the better off you are.
I think it's time we introduce our third person.
Hey. Sorry I'm late. I thought it said 7:45. And then people kept coming to my booth. They were like, "Aren't you on a panel?" I was like, "Yeah, dude. It's not till later." And then That guy actually was just at my booth. He said, "No, it's right now," and he showed me that. I was like, "What?" Totally beat him here though. I'm faster than you. But thank you for telling me about it. So yeah, sorry I'm late, but yeah, I've been doing animation for like 15 years. I don't know what you guys already talked about, or did you introduce yourselves?
Started. We were just talking about planning and doing animatics.
Sure, animatics. What a boring subject, right, guys? No. If you're like, obviously, you're all here because you're into animation, so you know. So I mean, some people would find these things boring, but like if you're into it, it's not boring. It's actually really exciting. Making animatics is like a combination of all the work that you do with the voiceover talent, recording the voiceovers and whatnot, and then working with your storyboard artists, or like if you're an artist yourselves and you draw out little sketches. Usually, like what I like to do is hire a way better artist to do the storyboards. So you can give them like little rough drawings, because storyboards really, like, to make a really good animatic is a lot of work, So it depends. Like, do you guys ship out to other, like when you guys do it?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm kind of talking about my own, because right now I make little films on my own, so I'm doing it more for myself. So it probably doesn't have to be as fleshed out as you want it to be for shipping it overseas.
Got it. Okay.
But you're right. Like you definitely want to. Storyboarding is a critical process. Your storyboards become part of the animatic, and then you're laying in your initial sound. So you can do scratch tracks, you can do stuff on your own if you're trying to communicate. If you're the director, then you're directing the project, and you can work back and forth. And of course, you can do this all digitally, so it doesn't have to be local. It can be people all over the world, which is handy, and that becomes this amazing thing. And eventually, you find that your animatic, if you're your own editor, your animatic, it ultimately becomes your final edit, which is a beautiful thing. And you're seeing it come to life along the way. And then certain shots, like your storyboard panels, start getting replaced with your layout shots, and then your layout shots get replaced with your animation shots, and then your animation shots get your TDs and your special effects. That all starts to get thrown in there. So you've got little chunks coming to life throughout the entire process, which is great, because you can't wait for this sequence, or this act to catch up with this act, because this act's looking really great. But then all of a sudden you find out, my timing really stinks right here, and so I need to revise that. And it's a beautiful thing watching it come to life.
Yeah, the terminology, even the term animatics is annoying, because it's like, it really comes from like industrial Tide commercials, and like a very non-creative element is where I first heard about animatics, was in like some boring, dry video world of like, we're making the Crest commercial animatics, with like weird 3/4 tape dubs, nothing creative. You know what I mean? I wish there was another word for it, but there isn't. So henceforth, what is it?
Used to be called
from the 50s?
Used to be called a Leica reel, right?
Even worse.
Story
That's
reel.
worse. Yes, I'm working on the Leica reel.
Story reels, okay.
So I guess storyboards and voiceover equals a pre-cartoon. What would you? I'm not going to come up with it.
Well, I think it comes from the advertising age. It was back then when. Let's face it. Money does drive certain things, and these advertising execs weren't going to try to go and find buku dollars for a commercial or a project without getting a feel for it. And I can guarantee that many times that many studios have created an animatic where some uninitiated advertising exec looked at the animatic and goes, "Oh, that's amazing. I'm ready. I'm going to buy 50,000 copies or something, like whatever that was." And you're like, "No, that's the animatic. It's not done yet, But to a lot of people, they can sometimes look like the finished product. They can get that good.
Plus, the commercial division would always charge an incredible amount of money for an animatic. But since we're talking about animation, that's really like, the animation thing is like any one of you can do an animatic. And it really, what he was saying is really, it's the core, key, most important part of what your cartoon eventually will be, is like, because you're going to record all the voices, you're going to do multiple takes, you might take circle takes of the ones like, if you have your friends, or, I'm just going by the idea that none of you guys are professional animators and you want to make a cartoon. That's what I'll go by, saying, hey, I just want to make a cartoon using software at my house, So, definitely learn Flash. It would be a great tool to learn. Use After Effects to do your compositing. Boy, it's rough to do, like, I suck at backgrounds, so like, get to know other people, reach out to the animation community, and find people who can do killer fucking backgrounds, because that's awesome. nothing makes your cartoon look better than a really kick-ass, cool painted background. Like you can have like a weird, shubbly, scratchy. Like if you suck at drawing, you could still make the cartoon fucking amazing because you have this awesome background. You know what I mean? That looks like real stone. I know this dude painted it for me. Whatever. I'm just saying, those are the things you wouldn't skimp on in a cartoon. Is like really cool, amazing backgrounds. Like what annoyed you the most in Scooby-Doo is like those shitty painted cycling backgrounds. Like for me, when I was a kid, I knew it was like a cycle. I would hate those kinds of things, and you know you're cheaping out. Like when you're a kid, like oh He-Man looked all weird. It's like because it's shot on sixes, like the cheapest way to like. There's certain things that stink. Like even though you whatever if you're a He-Man fan, I'm not trying to rip on just He-Man. I'm just saying like cheap cartoons, like you can tell, and even in the world that we live in now, like you'll watch a Warner Brothers cartoon, and it's like a 2-hour movie, but it just isn't as good as it should be, or as good as it could be because they're not spending that extra money to shoot it on ones, or all of it's like little, like they're still shipping it overseas. It's still done, maybe a lot of it's on 2s and 4s, and you know what I'm saying? Like there's just that missing element of like full fluid animation. Henceforth, that's why so many things go to 3D. So we're all talking about 2D in general, or do you do 3D?
I do both. Actually, I started 2D, then went to 3D for a really long time because Jimmy Neutron was 3D, and the Ant Bully was 3D. Olive was actually 3D meant to look like 2D, much like
Paperboy.
that paperboy thing,
I can't remember what it's called.
Question?
What's that?
When you were talking about backgrounds, that was something that that's something that reminded me of what the people did with Blackford Manor when it came to creating silhouettes from the characters and differentiating from the foreground to the background with different colors.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Blackford Manor was that?
No, I-
Black Star? Did you say Black Star?
I thought you said Blackford Manor.
Yeah.
I did too, and I was like, that sounds interesting.
Blackford Manor, that was on Cartoon Hangover, right?
No, you're talking about that weird Nick Weidenfeld, like extra sketchy thing with the watercolor background, Adult Swim cartoon? Or you're not, or we're all talking about different things.
Do you mean?
Unless you're talking about Black Star, which is David Bowie's latest album.
Right.
So.
You should all be listening to.
Yeah, right, exactly.
No, Blackford Manor.
Don't know what you're talking
Okay,
about. Why
okay.
not explain what it is so everyone in the audience knows what you're talking about?
Oh, Blackford Manor. Okay. I've actually never seen the shirt, but I do know that the main character is a gothic character, and now I also know that it is on Cartoon Hangover, and
Yeah,
I
I've
also
seen it.
It's
seen
Ju Kim's short.
Oh, okay.
It's
I know her. I went to school with her.
You've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It is. It's really nice. Yeah, that's a good example of just how nice design and backgrounds and just sort of doing things a little differently, even though it's a low budget short.
Okay, do you guys,
Came out
do we want to open this up for questions? Do you
I
guys want to
think
do
I
that?
know. I know who you were referring to, Paperman, the Pixar one that was a 3D looking like 2D.
Yeah,
It's called
yeah.
Paperman, that's what you're trying to refer to.
Thank you for helping out there. Okay, do you guys want to open this up for questions? Do you want to like just keep
Yeah, no, we
plowing?
can, this is called, what is it called, from pencil to screen, or?
Concept is
Concept to screen. So give us good questions about conceptual ideas you might have and how do you take it to screen. You want to pick them?
Yeah. Okay. So raise your hand high, sir. Okay, you're right in front.
Okay, like when you have like your story and your characters together and you're like ready to go up to like the company and like present, like do you have any tips on like how the best way to like present your ideas and your big old entire concept, like a really good, nice way to like tell them this is what I want, this is why you should have this on your channel?
Sir.
I think it's good to start off with just a simple concept, like a simple, one sentence, like this is what my idea is, and kind of strip it down to the bare minimum so they get a clear idea of it. And then if you just have maybe like, depending on what you think sells your idea, maybe if it's the look, or maybe if it's the writing, like if it's the look of it, make sure you have a nice image or something to show that shows that. But I think keeping it simple and just thinking of what is the what best shows my idea and like so they can get like, okay, I know what it is. And not showing them too many things sort of make it more confusing. But like I've pitched a few ideas. I think the best pitches went when I just had a clear idea that was, a good idea. Obviously they had to like it, but I made it clear.
You want to go? I would say like this is really across the board. Like if you've never done anything professionally in animation, I would go with what he's saying, because it's like a lot of people want to be like, I've got my pitch deck and I've designed all the characters and here's my 12 episode outline, and you will not sell it. Why? Because you've never done anything before, and no studio is going to give you a ton of money unless you've actually done something before. So that's why it's all baby steps. Like you always hear that stuff like, I sketched this fucking drawing and I was on an airplane, I threw up, and then I did this weird drawing and now I'm a millionaire. That doesn't happen. You know who would happen to John Crick-Falusi, because he's super talented, and he was like doing cocaine with Bakshi while they were doing like Mighty Mouse. That's why, I'm saying, like he's already in the business is what I'm trying to say. He's already doing things. So unless you're already in the business and you've already done stuff, then you have those doors that are already available and they're open, where you can go up to an executive producer that was like a production assistant 5 years ago when you guys were both coming up, and that dude just bounced up, and he's going to open a door for you. So otherwise, what I would do is exactly what he said, is like, do your one drawing, make sure that character is fun. Well, what does the character do? Have a backstory. What would be an example of 4 episodes? Have an example, but don't write the script, because they won't hire you to write the script. I'm just saying, like, if you're trying to sell something, you'll be as minimally as involved as they possibly can make you. So keep your doors open as far as like what your idea is and how flexible it is. Like, don't come in with a finished script like, I know my entire universe, because no one wants to work with you then. The people, when you hire a producer, they're going to want to have their input. Every single executive producer has changed the color of your glasses. You know what I'm saying? It's like they all have like little annoying notes, like, I don't know what about the shades of the glasses? And then a couple other people were trying to keep their job. Yeah, glasses should be green. Oh, Bobby said green, that's good. And then you're like, who the fuck are you? How do you make more money than me? So it's like, once you're dealing with irritating things like that, that's a different world. But like, if you're just trying to get in, definitely have a cool idea, have a cool drawing, make sure your character will connect with whatever the age group it is too. Also, like, I come from Adult Swim. I'm not making shows for kids on purpose, but I'm just saying, it's like, I'm not in that world. A lot of other people are making shows. Jimmy Neutron is like, what is that age group? It's like 6 to 11?
Something like that.
Yeah, it's like, there's all these age groups, so you have to know who your audience is. And then you have to pitch to the people who are in charge of that. You don't go to Adult Swim and pitch them a baby show.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, what is wrong with you? And then maybe they'd be like, he's totally crazy, Because you have to know who your market is. That's the most important thing, is taking your general idea and trying to go, if you want to do it, if you want to do it with a company or a larger thing. Most of you, I would highly suggest doing it yourself, because that's the way to do stuff. It's like, bam, I made it, I learned animation, I teamed up with some other people, we made a cool 1-minute short, I threw it on YouTube.
Yeah, I think definitely for starting out, that's the way to go, because you have to show people what you can do, and just making a film is the best. Especially if it's comedy. If it's really funny, then it's really funny. And no one can argue with that.
Also, studios are going to take an option out. If they like your stuff, you're going to have to go through multiple approval processes on this stuff, and so you're going to, if you're lucky, they'll take an option out on your project.
When he says option, he means free.
Yeah.
Like, people think, like, I option this thing, is that most of the time, 95% of that is free. And then you do all this work, like jumping through hoops and like doing scripts for them. And they have like people with opinions telling you to throw your script away and redo it, and it's all free. So get ready for that. That's fun.
I was going to say, he mentioned the term pitch deck or pitch Bible. These are terms that you guys should check out and look out to. I believe that it's good to be prepared to an extent when you go in, but it also depends on how well you pitch. For me, I find that I'd rather be more prepared and have plenty ready in case you get the option of your minute actually goes from a 30-second elevator pitch to you actually get 10 minutes with somebody. Then you might want to be ready to go. And I'd also suggest that you don't just have one property ready to go. You may want to have multiple properties ready to go, because if they don't like your first idea and then they're just looking at you, and then
I've
you've got
done
this
that.
really awkward.
I've had it in my, you know what? Pull this other thing out. What about this? Oh, it works sometimes, because they're already expecting one thing from you, but if it's not flying in the room, you can always have that backup. It works, or it doesn't. It depends.
Okay, right here.
Along the same vein, since you were saying you really would advise beginners to do their own work. From pre-production, can you explain a little bit more about what you do in the production phase?
Sure. Well, from the production phase has several different categories, of course. I mean, there's character design, there's rigging, there's modeling, of course. I'm speaking on the 3D side. Same thing happens on the 2D side. You're still going to create model sheets. You know, you're going to do revolves. And actually, in 2D animation, whether you're using Flash or After Effects, you're still going to, there's a certain amount of rigging involved, a certain amount of bones, and you're going to have to create that. So a lot of that happens. You know, you're still going to have to deal with your lighting and special effects. So the bulk of the heavy meat is happening during the production phase. And if you're doing it well, then again, your animatic's getting updated with that. So it all comes back to the animatic at that point in time. But by then, your pre-production, you know, your script's usually locked, not always. And then you start really just getting into the meat and potatoes of it at that phase.
Yeah, how about that orange dude?
Okay.
Orange shirt.
Stand out, always stand out. I was wondering, did you guys, all three, like work the festival circuit in the beginning, or did you find work like coming out of school and just kind of work your way through everything?
An origin story. You go.
I've never submitted anything to festival. I worked as an animator out of school for a few years, and then once I started doing voiceover, I just have been working on my own things. So the film I'm working on now, I think I might submit to festivals, but I never did that.
I was wondering because I have one here in the festival screening tomorrow at 1:30 in room 104.
Good pimping.
What about you guys too? Like, have you done that or no?
Yeah, I've actually had several short films written and directed by me in various film festivals, but mostly in the Texas area. I'm from Dallas, and so that's our home base. So, but yeah, I mean, they have gone to different states. It just depends on if you want to spend the money to go there and advertise along with your film, which, you know, it's got to be a pretty great festival, so it depends on the festival. And then I guess it depends on the end goal, which I don't know if we probably should have started there, because you really want to try to figure out, A, who your audience is, and you want to figure out what your end goals are before you really commit a lot of time to these projects sometimes. I think a lot of people just kind of go, oh, you know, I like characters with purple eyes. That's great, but, you know, what do you want to do with it? Where do you want to go? Is it going to be a gag-driven thing? Is it going to be going to have a, you know, real epic beginning, middle, and end to your project? So I think we probably should talk about it more too, is just what is it you're trying to accomplish? Where do you want to go? What do you think is your avenue for release and distribution? Which I know some people are like, well, what are we talking about that for? You know, well, it's pretty important, because you really want to know who your audience is going to be. So I think a lot of times you need to figure out, start at the end and then work your way backwards a little bit in terms of trying to figure out where you're going to submit to. Like if your goal is to create a web series, you're going to create a web series and you're going to be going, you know, to YouTube, or you're putting it on Vimeo, or whatever it is your goal is. Figure out why. You know, what are the avenues there? What's the opportunities for success? Which that could be a whole panel right there. But I think it's important you guys just think about the end first a lot of times, and then start from there.
So myself, I never put anything into a film festival. I guess the only thing I ever submitted was I made this weird science fiction comedy, but had no it wasn't an animated thing. It was live action, and I had submitted that to the Chicago Underground Film Festival, the very first one, and we won. And it was like, you know, it's a weird thing I made. So festivals, I don't know, for myself, I'm not a big fan. I went to the Spike and Mike Film Festival, where we just had a bunch of gross fucked up animation, like Lupo the Butcher, just chopping shit up and whatnot. And I like going to festivals and seeing animated festivals, but I got into animation in a weird way I went to an art school, like studied fine art, and just ended up working with my friends who graduated who did music videos. So I just like was some chump PA fucking working, you know, just trying to make $100, like creating oil and glass bullshit in front of the mirror, and then copy stand stuff, and that led to, because I had studied some animation in school.
You were in school for that.
But not for animation. I said like weirdo experimental, like Stan Brakhage, fucked up, Lenny Lai, all these, you know, super weird. But I also liked animation in general, so I would like try doing animation myself. And just by doing these music videos and doing copy stand stuff and knowing about how to do animation, I ended up doing this Chris Mars music video. Chris Mars is a painter from The Replacements. He's also an incredible artist. And he wanted his creatures to come to life. So me and this other artist who graduated, that was our first like animation job, was like taking his paintings and like learning how to paint them with colored pencils and fucking animate them, which was horrifying. Because you know, like you're talking about like 25 frames, even on twos, it's only a second and a half. You know. And so that's kind of how I got into it. Was doing music videos, and then I was like, someone offered me a job to make my own cartoon on some CD-ROM thing, and I was like, sure. So I made like a film noir detective cartoon, and just kind of. Then I just started my own animation company in Chicago because I was like, yo, this is fun, and I can fucking make some money doing this shit, and it's cool and creative. So it's kind of like that's how anybody can do stuff. Is festivals really, unless it's gonna like knock it out of the park, and you got a lot of festival people who love your stuff. It's like ultimately like what you want now is like YouTube is the film festival if you want to win at. So.
Who was?
So I know I've been developing a series for a while, and the thing is, a lot of the shows, I know I want to pitch to Cartoon Network, but the hard thing is most of the shows you hear about, the creators were approached by executives from like various companies because they had already been working in the system for a long time. So how does someone who's outside of the whole networking system even begin to approach a big company like Cartoon Network to even consider their like idea?
It's pretty rough. You want the truth, it's really hard. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. Like most of the people, all the cartoon shows that you're watching on our Cartoon Network, almost, I'd say 80% of them are all developed in-house. And they're not developed in-house, they're just like, dude, you were working on Adventure Time and you're really fucking creative and you just like storyboarded and wrote this episode. You want a shot at coming up with your own cartoon? Pitch me on Monday.
Rebecca Sugar.
Exactly. I know Rebecca Sugar and her boyfriend Ian. That's exactly how both of them got their shows. Exactly. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's really almost impossible. So what I would suggest to you if you want to actually do that, see, it's all selective type stuff. Like I don't know how many other people want to work for Cartoon Network, but if you want to work for Cartoon Network, move to LA, go live in Burbank, get a job as anything through any of those cartoons that are happening right now at Cartoon Network. It's very easy to get a job at Cartoon Network. It's on the 4th floor, it's in Burbank, they need people all the time. You might not get paid a lot, work as a PA, be like, I'll go get coffee for you every day. But then you're there, and then you meet all these people, and then all of a sudden now you're working as an assistant, doing storyboard fixes or cleanup. That's how you get in, and then you do that for 2 years, and then you become friends with people who are working there. That's really the honest answer from me.
Yeah, that's right.
It's pretty similar. Yeah. Basically, it's really, really hard.
It's a step-by-step thing. Everything's hard.
I'll tell you a little story about
It's
it.
not impossible though. I'm just saying, you do those things, it becomes almost 70% possible if you're talented.
So I worked for John Davis, who was the creator of Jimmy Neutron, and John, we did a.
Garfield? Same guy?
Different one. John A. Davis. But he basically, he and his partner Keith Alcorn, who were the DNA of DNA Productions. Those guys started in their dad's garage, and they started and just plowed away, doing basically little commercials in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, TV commercials for a really long time. And they were developing stories for a long time. And then finally, it turned out at the same time there was this other little-known guy named Matt Groening, who was basically in the Dallas-Fort Worth working at a cartoon, and he had got The Simpsons was getting going here, and it was like really becoming popular. Well, they actually knew them, and next thing you know, we got all of the other reindeer. And so suddenly the little company grew from like 2 people to 6, and then 6 to 12, and the next thing you know, Drew Barrymore's voicing the voice of Olive, and we got our first big project. We're 6 months in, and we kick it out. Next thing it comes out, it's a success. Yay, great. Next thing you know, he's like, I got this other thing. It's called Johnny Quasar, which is Jimmy Neutron, and then suddenly, we're working on the feature film for it. So it does happen. It only takes 20 years. Over here.
You had mentioned that you also do some adult coloring books. as well.
They're not adult. I don't know about, I know, not him, but I'm G-rated here, so.
color in adult.
Yeah.
Well, I know that that's really starting to catch, it seems to be really catching fire lately, and I just wondered what the.
That means I should start saying it. Oh, yeah, I do adult.
So, but how was the experience of the animation that you're talking about versus the cartoon or the coloring book experience?
Well, it's a different business model completely. You know,
Yeah.
you're getting into the publishing world there, so you're having to deal with a whole different ball of wax. And there's so many different publishing houses, and you know, the one that I'm kind of halfway working with is a educational one. So it's really meant for, you know, kids, particularly actually kids in need. So we actually do, it's philanthropic in nature in the sense that predominantly, I don't know, maybe 55% of all the books that we create actually are donated via grant to various foster homes and foster parent situations. So all of these kids are kind of doing that. So I don't know, I have a 2-year-old, and right about that time, you know, you start developing real hard for kids all of a sudden when you have one, and it's next thing you know, you're into that mode. So I've always kind of been working in G-rated projects, and this is just an extension of that.
So it's more on the side of publishing than television.
Yeah, it really has nothing to do with animation, except that, you know, I may actually pitch, the characters are called Willy Nilly, 2 armadillos. WillyNillyWorld.com if you want to check it out. But yeah, if you go there, you know, you'll find out that it's part of a comic strip that I had, and then it became a compilation book, and then I was prompted to do a coloring book, and coloring books are just using the same art. So, but it's a whole different thing.
Okay, we'll go back over here.
I was just wondering, where did you guys major? You guys went to school for what you do, so what did you guys major in when you went to school?
Video and performance art, painting, weird shit.
I did it backwards. I got my bachelor's in art at the University of North Texas, and at that time, Toy Star was starting to roll around, and I really didn't care about getting another degree so much as I just wanted the training. So then I went to the Art Institute of Dallas, and I got a 2-year degree. So I got my associate's degree in computer animation at that time, and then fortunately, right after that, I was hired at DNA. So.
I went to school at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. That's my college.
I went to CalArts for character animation.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people went to CalArts. Oh, by the way, besides each other, do you guys have any other friends or acquaintances from, you know, who worked on any other shows besides the ones that you're familiar with?
Too many to mention.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just
There was 250 people worked on the Jimmy Neutron feature film, and so I'm sure that's the same with these guys. You know, there's just tons and tons of people you come into contact with. That's a good thing.
How about that guy over there?
Is there a point, you were talking earlier about concept and a bunch of people are going to try to change a few details or almost everything about it. How drastically does the concept change from the final product? And do guys like who've been in the game for a while, like I'm talking like Paul Dini's and Wise, do their concepts get altered to the point, like say someone who's been in there for maybe 10 years?
Well, you know, that's a case-by-case scenario. There's no, like, this is how it works all the time. I mean, it really depends on what characters you're working with and, like, what the mandate is from the company at large. Like, you're working for Warner Brothers Animation, and you have a bunch of DC characters. There's someone else who's in charge of what Superman can and can't do that year. So it doesn't matter what you wrote, it'll then get changed. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, there's all those things if you're working with characters like Disney characters. Mickey Mouse, he can't do this, he can't do that. He can't be seen making French toast. You're like, why not? Because there's somebody came up with this rule. So there's all these rules for, you know, characters that already exist. That's the easiest answer. There's no like one set way anything is ever written or done. So.
I wish there was like, you know, we seem to be regurgitating everything a lot these days in film and television quite a bit. So I hope you guys all continue to strive to try to create something unique and original. I think that would be fantastic. I know the industry needs it a whole bunch. So that's really all I got to say. Right here. I think she had her hand up first. Go ahead.
I've heard that also another good way to get into like things like animation is through like internships. Like how would someone go about with that? Because I know someone from Cartoon Network recently posted on his Tumblr how the internship process, how he went to, and I'm really curious, especially someone who is like only now starting to really focus on animation. Like how would they go about working with?
Good question. Well, there's a lot of like, I don't know about Florida, so you know, are you guys living in Florida? All right, so like I don't know what the Florida animation scene is, but in California, there's a lot of smaller companies like Shadow Machine, Titmouse, there's a whole bunch of different companies that you apply for an internship. Technically, that's you working for free for them, and not just getting coffee, but doing Xeroxing and all this other stuff that has nothing to do with animation. And you do that for a while, but then ultimately they'll put you on like, hey, we want you to, you know, color in the blacks for this, and you'll learn Flash, and you'll learn how to do stuff, like mainly mechanical stuff. But yeah, I mean, usually you have to be in college to get an internship, because then they apply it towards your college credit. So that would be my suggestion is look up like animation companies in Florida, which I don't know of any. Does anybody know of any animation companies in Florida? Raise your hand or shout it out. Or you guys are all in the wrong state. You all have to move to California.
I know that there's actually casting calls for voice acting in Florida.
Right, but that doesn't matter. You could pipe that into anywhere in the country or the planet. Say what?
I think Disney does an internship here, like in Orlando, but that's it.
Actually, Disney has a talk. They do? Yeah, because I'm from Jersey and they send them actually down to Disney for their internship. Like if you get to the right school, they will send you here.
In animation?
Yes.
Huh.
I had 2 internships when I was from going to college. So for me, it was going to art school, and then they'd have a portfolio review, and studios would come to that, and then or to our show at the end of the year where we showed films, and they'd usually ask people to do their internships from those portfolio reviews or the film, like little film showcases at the end of the year. So for me, it was going to art school and then getting the internship. But that's just my experience.
The creator of any cartoon, but you know, besides just being the creator, like, is there any specific type of jobs? Like, I heard that Monty the creator of Ruby, you know, he was the animator, like he was the creator, like I created, but you know, he's still doing his stuff. Like, in all of your experiences, have any of you ever met like any creators who would just like animate the episodes or write them?
Besides Matt Groening.
You mean that
he was the producer on all of the other reindeer, so he was great. Got to meet him, and he's a fantastic creator. But John Davis is the creator of Jimmy Neutron, and he was fantastic. These guys, they started just like everybody else did, drawing cartoons, sketching, you know, working. Actually, this kind of ties into the previous question. I know some amazing animators who started as interns at DNA that you know went on to work at Pixar, Disney, and so forth. So it doesn't really matter where you start because everybody has to start somewhere. So if you stay focused, and these guys were fantastic. You were an intern, right? You said you were an intern?
I was an intern at Pixar and then worked there, and I was an intern when James Baxter had his little studio. I interned for James Baxter.
And now he's here. So there you go.
I'd say like the names like you're looking for, maybe like name people. It's like Jackson Public from Venture Brothers. He's a creator of the show and heavily involved in the storyboarding and the drawing and the design of everything. So, and then you also have the flip side of it, like someone like Brendan Small or Tommy Blatcher from Metalocalypse. None of them draw. They didn't have anything to do with the artwork or direction or anything for the first 2 seasons. So that was, I designed the characters, I did the storyboards, I edited everything. So they're creators of the show, but they just came up with the concept. So it's a mix and match universe. South Park, yeah. South Park's a big.
In your like respective like software, what would you say would be your most like I don't know how to describe it. I guess your favorite shortcut besides save or undo. Like what has helped you the most in Maya or in After Effects or in Flash?
After Effects is like you can do really cool, like you can make a walk cycle by just moving a person along with nodes. you know? So it's not really a real animation, but you can, basically it's like cheating, you know, like, or if you have, there's certain things in After Effects where you can like take a still of someone, if their mouth's just, you know, flapping, we call it mouth flap, where if you have a still and somebody's mouth flap and their eyes blink, but it's generally just kind of a one drawing. You do like a slow dramatic push on them. There's certain things that, you know, add so much cinematic value for absolutely no money, and sometimes that to me feels like it's a cheat. Like you're like, that shot came out amazing, even if it's like one drawing. You know? Cool, weird shadow crosses over dude's face and stuff like that.
Well, and just to keep going with the After Effects theme, you know, I love time remapping in After Effects, particularly for blanks and lip sync. So, you know, and I think that's a key component of using that particular software. Other than that, you know, Maya is pretty much the commonly used character animation tool for most 3D these days. I mean, you know, that's off the shelf.
If you're talking about just trying to get something done quickly.
I was thinking more keyboard shortcuts, but this helps too.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I have no clue what keyboard is.
Hey, I'll have to bounce. Thanks. See you guys later.
All right, good job.
Come to booth 531 and check out my movie later.
Vincent, I'm slacking off.
Get back to work. Come on. I'm not paying you to stand around and take my picture.
Actually being recorded. I gotta go. Bye.
Okay.
Nice having you.
This isn't like a real question, but Kata screamed, "Make your dreams come true or you're fired," like pencil.
Make your dreams come true or you're fired!
I didn't want to hear that so badly. Just getting advice about making cartoons from a guy that sounds basically just like that. So.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I think we have 10 minutes left, so let's go right there.
In 2D animation, what do you use for cleanup? Do you do cleanup in Flash or is it Illustrator?
You can do a bunch of different things. If you're, I just started using TV Paint, that software. So I like animating in there now. But I used to just use paper. I still will just use paper sometimes, I think. But you could animate on paper and then scan it in and clean it up in TV Paint. But I think for doing 2D, it just depends on what software is easiest to use. But I mean, it's if you're doing 2D, it's either way it's drawing. So you know, I think it's sort of just up to you.
I actually draw character design. I use paper just to draw characters and design, and then take it into Illustrator, and then basically create the illustrated character. Then hop over to After Effects or Flash for that point, and then it takes a more 3D modeling pipeline approach where you rig it, IK it, and then you start to animate from there. But I know a lot of people are still hand drawing traditionally, particularly in Flash, which being a digital medium, it's kind of easy to clean that up. But yeah, yes sir.
I guess maybe just help with some of them. I use Toon Boom. If you ever.
Yeah, Toon Boom's awesome.
Yeah, Toon Boom's awesome. They have various different levels where you can go really high-end production studios above. And in fact, the animation that I have running in room 104 tomorrow at 1:30.
There's that plug again. Please go to 104 tomorrow.
I use Toon Boom for that, and I have cards if you want to grab one to remind you of the time at 1:30.
All right.
Toon Boom is great, like that.
Yeah. It is awesome. It definitely is awesome. Okay.
She had a question.
Okay.
First one, I have two. The first one is directed to you specifically. As making your own productions, do you have a crew that works with you, of like friends or just people you've hired, or do you solely do everything?
I just started making this one short, and I'm doing most of the work. It's with puppets. So I'm making all the puppets and things. Or I made them all, but I don't know anything about like cinematography. So I have a friend who's a cinematographer, and he's doing that stuff. And then I have another friend who likes to sew little costumes, so I got her to do those. But I do everything that I know how to do, and then I got help from friends for the other things.
And the second question was, at the of them do you honestly think is the most pleasant to work for? Because I've heard various stories about Disney being very controlling with their creators and their content that comes out. And I know that each one has like their own set of style that tends to come out. Like Cartoon Network does tend to feed to the more like upper teens, while Disney's more clean cut, I guess. But what's your opinion on that?
I worked the most at Disney, which was fun. I had really good friends who worked there, but I was there as an animator, and I haven't worked for Cartoon Network. Only as I've worked developing a pilot and as a voice actor. So I've had the most fun working at Cartoon Network, but the work I've been doing has been more like working on my own thing and doing voices. But I've heard people like working at Cartoon Network because they're a little more about creator-driven things, and Disney kind of has a more set thing of like they have a larger history and they're a bigger company, so they kind of have more strict guidelines of what they want to stick to. Cartoon Network still does, but I think they're looking more for a different thing. So if you're doing something different, you probably would do better there than maybe at Disney.
I think it's kind of a loaded question. I mean, it's depending on your experience. Everybody has a different experience at different studios. So one person can have an amazing experience at the exact same studio that somebody else can't stand. It just depends on what's going on in your personal life sometimes, and then it also just it depends on what they've got you doing in that production. So hopefully it's something that you train for and that you enjoy doing, and that usually helps out. Either way, you're going to end up working a good 12, 14-hour day, so you better enjoy it. Because animation is just that type of career. It's very time intensive, and make sure you stand up, stretch once in a while. Yes, sir.
Do people frequently pitch their comics to, say, Cartoon Network or Toonami?
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, people are pitching all the time. It's a never-ending thing. I mean, there's only how many people live in California alone? I mean,
Yeah, I know the executives at Cartoon Network are constantly hearing pitches all the time.
I think sometimes you almost have to pitch to get a pitch. It's almost that bad. It's really, really, really difficult to get a meeting, so to speak. So either A, you know somebody, which helps a lot, or you just really, really adamant about getting that pitch and you don't give up. And then a lot of times they have a lot of open pitch sessions or days where they will schedule and all the studios will come together and they allow people to pitch ideas and so forth. And I don't personally know any success stories from that, but I know that they do that. So keep your eye open for that. Watch the trade magazines and see when those things are coming. Yes.
Can you expound a little bit more on the, you were talking about animating for YouTube?
Sure. YouTube, it depends. YouTube's an interesting animal because YouTube's algorithm driven, and so a lot of times animators have a tough time, certain animators sometimes have a certain time getting something to go viral or to make it really popular because you're dealing with the fact that animation typically, because it's so hard to produce a lot of times each movie is short. It's not very long. Whereas somebody who's putting something on YouTube that's live action, it might be just naturally longer and easier to put together. So a lot of times I feel like the longer these things are, the more attention they would get, which makes it doubly hard on the animation community to try to get something to become really, really popular. So I almost feel like you have to stay with it, develop a series of stuff, and then eventually as your playlist grows and so on and so forth, then people will stay with your product and you'll develop an audience that way. So you really have to kind of stick with it for a long period of time. I think that's what I've found, and I think there's a lot of blogs on this subject that are out there where they're saying the same thing these days. That going that route is a little tough. Is that what you heard?
Just for trying to make things. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm doing things with puppets now, is because I think I can maybe make them a little faster or make longer things on my own. But yeah, it's tricky. Animation is always a big if it's a feature, it's always a huge group effort. And it's hard to do things quickly on your own. You kind of have to accept that it just is time consuming, I think.
I got several little animations that are on YouTube right now, and it's hard to figure out what's going to go. I mean, there was some I put so much time and effort into, and they were still not even that long. They're not even 30 seconds long, but you know, there was a beginning and middle end. There was a story, there was a concept. And then there was this like thing I did that was a little cartoon dog walk cycle, just to show people, you know, that I was actually doing a seminar on it, and I was like, here's how you do a basic cartoon dog walk cycle. That got like 10 times more hits or whatever, views. I don't know why. You know, it just seemed for whatever reason. Maybe it was because it was educational. I don't know. So it's a strange animal, YouTube, when it comes for the animators in the world. But I do think it's a great medium to get your stuff exposed. But then you have to turn into, not only you become an animator and so forth, and suddenly you got to be your own agent, and you got to become, you know, the person, your own advertising exec, who's going to sit there and just try to send it out to people over and over and over and over. So that part, maybe if you have a friend or someone that is really good at that, they can give you some help on that. I would highly recommend making friends with someone who's really good on the advertising side.